morning, and thank you so much for joining us here this morning on Voice Uganda Radio for the American Connection. I am your host, Miss Brenda, and once again, as always, I thank you so much for joining in and being a part of the program. It is an honor for me this week that I have the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, who's going to be on the air with me this morning, and of course, Dorothy may be calling in later this morning or in a little bit. So it should be another little lively conversation. We seem to run out of time on our Sundays on Freedom at Hand with some of the issues that we want to cover and talk about. And these Wednesdays seem to be a little more calmer, and we can have a little more time to just really share some things from our heart and where we see the new Uganda heading at. So let me allow Zoe to come on in and say good morning. Hi, Zoe. How are you this morning?
Oh, good morning, Miss Brenda. I'm feeling good. It's a Wednesday, and it's a wonderful day. We have a lot of sunshine. The weather is great, and I know that we are going to have a great discussion. And there's nothing like, having the hope and knowing that we are going to have a better Uganda in the new Uganda. So I'm excited this morning, and thank you, listeners, for always being there with us.
Yes, yes. And Dorothy, come on in and say good morning and hello and greet our listeners this morning.
Hello, Miss Brenda. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Honorable Bakoko, thank you so much for coming in and endeavoring every time. It means Uganda. For the gentlemen, our engineer in the studio, we love you for the hard work. I would also like to thank all our listeners, whenever you were, our friends, well-wishers, supporters, but we love you so much for being there, listening always. You make this program what it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, thank you. We're going to have to start the conversation out this morning, as always. We'll steer off and lead into some other things, but we're going to start off just a few minutes here on the Sam Kutesa thing that's going on right now. I've read about he's appointed some people to replace him and some other things that are going to be happening there in the UN coming up this week and next week. I want to look at this from an American standpoint and bring you guys in on the conversation. We have to understand that in history, in life, in government, in everything that happens and takes place in our lives, the package doesn't always look as good as it appears to be. It may be wrapped pretty in disguise, but on the inside it tends to be something else. And we know that this is what's happening here with Sam Kutesa. To say that, we're saying this. A lot of our callers over the weekend said simply, we have put ourselves on record to say we do not stand behind this individual. He does not represent the people of Uganda as the people of Uganda should be represented, nor does he represent Africa as a whole in the way that Africa needs to be represented here in the UN. With that being said, Zoe, I don't see any of these things as they're unfolding as a non-victory for us as far as the way we view what the UN is doing and how they're moving forward here. What's your comment on that?
Thank you very much, Miss Brenda. God works in very, very mysterious ways. I was talking to a few people, or many people, during the course of the training we had, and this guy was talking to me about the history of the UN, and I didn't write the guy's name down, but he was actually the UN chief, like Ban Ki-moon, and years ago, and he knew what happened in the concentrated camps. He was involved what happened in the Jewish concentrated camps. He tried to deny the allegations. And what happened years later was he just had to resign because his conscience told him so. Because people continued to put on the pressure. They didn't let go. And I just want to bring it in the context of what we were talking. when you climb up on a mango tree and you want to, pick as many mangoes as you want, there's really normally the juicy big ones, they hang in places which are very, very critical. You don't want to go on that branch because the branch will break with you and it will kill you. So you stand where and stop on the branch which is sturdy. And what you do is you shake the tree or the branch. And as you shake it, you get a lot of mangoes dropping down. And so whether Kutesa likes it or he doesn't like it, whether he has a conscience or he doesn't have, we will continue with our resolve. We are not going to stop because we believe that it is not right for him to be in the UN. If he has a conscience, he will step aside. If he doesn't, he always wants to be forced out. It's up to him. And like during the 6th Parliament, he had to be forced out and censored. He didn't have a conscience to step aside. So if it is what he wants, it's up to him. But we will continue. God works in very different ways. And, who knows? This is the way we are going to be rallied together as Ugandans and the people around the world to have their lens now focused on Uganda. I had no clue that this guy had been, I had spoken to him, but I was so amazed how he brought the Kutesa issue and we were discussing it, It's amazing to know
so it is
how
a
many
conversation.
people.
Yeah,
it is a conversation now, whether he likes it or not, and it will continue to be a conversation. Even if the UN and him all look the other way, it is a conversation. It's a work in progress.
it is. And Dorothy, go ahead and come in on the conversation because what Zoe is saying is absolutely correct. The conversation has started. People are talking. He may be put in a position or may not still. We don't know what the outcome of this is going to be. But the eyes and ears of people are open, and this is going to shed a lot more light into Uganda, what's going on there, what is happening, because people are going to be curious as to why is everybody standing so in opposed to this person. So where they may think it's a victory for them, it can very well be a victory for us more so. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Thank you so much, Miss Brenda and Honorable Bakoko. I echo the words of Honorable Bakoko and Miss Brenda. There is a lot that is going on out there, most especially that Honorable Kutesa did appoint his two people to work with when he gets here. Mm-hmm. But before we go there, this is what I have to say. Miss Brenda, Honorable Bakoko, our listeners, those who have called in and contributed, let me tell you, we have done our work, and we have done well. Those who have signed the petition, yes, it is our responsibility to let the world know, to let the Ugandans know what the truth is. Okay? So, whatever happens, for me, this is what I think. Honorable Kutesa said that the State of Secretary Kelly supports him. I will not comment on that because those words were not from Senator Kelly either. Mm-hmm. The way I respect him and I know him, how he makes his decisions, not because of him, but because of the people. He has represented this country since the Vietnam War. So I'm not even going to go there. Now, if Kutesa makes it to the UN, my fellow listeners, our fellow listeners, beloved Ugandans and our friends, it will not mean that what has been done is right. No. What we are saying here, it is true based on evidence. People have been saying that we are working so hard to spoil the man. There's nothing to spoil. Everything is already rotten. Okay? We are stating facts. So, for us, we will continue to do our work so well. And please, for you out there, fellow Ugandans and the world at large, please continue to fight, because the fight continues. The people need to know the truth. Nobody is going to turn around and say, oh, we didn't know. Nobody told us. And another thing about this debate, we had a chance, if you had to read the comments, what people made in different articles, their views are clear. Even though some articles' comments were, there was an article on Monitor. If you went out on that date was published, the comments looked quite different. And when you go there today, they look quite different. Okay? So, if people have enough energy to even edit people's views and comments, that tells you a lot. So, they will play their game. We will stand on the truth, Miss Brenda. We will work hard. My message is to persevere, determination. We stand on the truth. It is not very easy to win, to stand on the truth, but when you do, you prevail. So, please continue.
Yes. And Zoe, answer to this, because if we think about people like Gandhi, if we think about people like Nelson Mandela, they had obstacles that they had to face head on and continue on with the struggle. This struggle is real, and this struggle continues to make a loud noise for the world to hear. Like you said, this individual you just came through training with, having a conversation, talking about a time before this one and the outcomes of that. And just like Dorothy was just stating, when people go out and read the Monitor, when they read the Black Star News, when they read all these articles and they go out and put comments, that means that the people are troubled and the people are bothered. And those voices cannot be ignored. Do you agree?
You summarized it very well earlier, Miss Brenda, by just saying the conversation is on. People are talking about this. It brings the lens from everywhere closer to Uganda. They are spot on. People are now focusing and interested in what is happening in Uganda. You know, before people were not bothered, and now people are interested. They want to understand what's going on.
What we want, and
that is the important thing we want, because what's been happening before is Museveni and his government have deceived the world, and they have managed to play the game. They can't play that game anymore, because the truth is now on. And we, as my colleague Dorothy just said, we stand on the truth. And there's always this saying that truth always glitters. You know, it's hard for you to see it from the beginning because your eyes have been veiled by this lie. But now people are removing that veil. And so the focus is on. By Kutesa accepting and thinking that he has beat the odds to come, he has actually shown how impunity, people who have impunity can just look at everything and say, who do you think you are? Whether you like it, you don't like it, I will get there. And I have the UN under my thumb, I have all these countries under my thumb, and I will get the job. Man, but you are putting that country on a road where we are going to see victory, because everybody is now looking and focusing on Uganda.
And we draw strength as a world, and as the people of Uganda, we draw strength from the things that were meant to defeat us. So the platform that he's building for us to build a better Uganda, a new Uganda forward, because the world will start to see all of the things that we have been talking about and sharing here. The platform that he puts us on to talk about a new Uganda and moving Uganda forward rallies the people behind us in a great way. Wouldn't you say so, Dorothy?
Exactly, Miss Brenda. As you mentioned, was it easy for Martin Luther King, the Malcolm X's, for Sarah Parks, Harriet Tubman, Nelson Mandela? Do you know how long those people fought? Do you know how long they stood their ground? Oh my God. Some of them had dreams they never lived to see. What about for us who are enjoying those dreams? My fellow Ugandans and our friends, the issue here is morals. is moral good, and it is about service. It is not about, if it was, some people are arguing that this is, and many people are trapped in this. Some are saying that if it comes to national issue, we are supporting because it is about Africa and Uganda. But what image do you take there? And for that matter, if it was about the image of Uganda shining over Africa, shouldn't we choose the best candidate on the planet over Africa over in Uganda? Miss Brenda, Honorable Bakoko, it is my understanding that we have people shining in Uganda that are suited to take that position. I had refrained to bring this conversation because the UN, Museveni, Kutesa himself, and those other people who are making comments that this is about fighting the sodomy, the gay, because when you look at Monitor article, that article about Kutesa, that is the only thing you see. They edited. But if they wanted better for Uganda to shine, or Africa, we have individuals so good. Some of them, they have performed so well, Miss Brenda, in the UN. Mm-hmm. Their performance is outstanding. So stop this nonsense of telling us that we are spoiling the man, that it is about Uganda, it is about Africa. If it is about Africa, you get back to your moral senses and bring people forward who can represent Uganda and Africa at large, because they are there.
Yeah, because speaking of that, even Zoe, you're talking about an individual who we have already discussed on some of our other programs that brings in so much wealth for himself, yet the very people that are employed by him are not being paid. Here in the United States of America right now, it was a push for minimum wage to be increased to $15 an hour in some states because people were living below the poverty level. And all Americans are getting on board to support this, to say, yes, you need to raise the money. If these people are barely getting by, they need more money. This is the way a democracy works in the United States of America. So you look at a person like Mr. Kutesa, and you see that he doesn't even feel the need to not only suggest what would be a good pay for his employees, but not even pay them. Where's the patriotics in that? And a man sitting as president of the UN over the nations when a lot of people have problems with that issue, and he doesn't even pay his individuals.
Miss Brenda, we said that, the Uganda has just pulled all the cameras and the lens on itself by bringing Mr. Kutesa, or Honorable Kutesa, to the UN. Because things, don't work that way. Like Dorothy has just said, didn't we have better people who could have represented Uganda and Africa? This is not about not being patriotic, not loving Uganda, or not just sinking Uganda down. He is the one sinking Uganda down with his boss. It's not about us. It's about him. He is the wrong candidate who was fronted to come to the UN. As a foreign affairs minister, he should have spoken around all the wrong things that have been happening, let alone him not even paying his workers, which is criminal, but he can't face it because he's entitled, because he's one of the entitled individuals in Uganda. And, it's just unbelievable that people can have those kind of comments. What good will Kutesa, who has been taking all the wealth for himself, he's one of the billionaires, just like Museveni, they are the billionaires from Uganda, and they have been stashing all this money outside Uganda. What good is he going to bring by being in the UN to Uganda if he's not going to get more of whatever he has been getting and stashing it away? How will that improve the poverty in Uganda? How will that change how people's lives have changed? How will that change the health care, which they have totally ruined? How will that change the education in Uganda, which they have totally ruined? How will that improve the numbers of the poor and reduce it from 80+% to maybe 20%? How will that reverse it by Kutesa being in the UN? The people who are asking these questions, how is that going to make the opposition? How are they going to reverse that POMA law? Will that make them reverse the all the bad laws they have made to silence people? Is that going to stop all that? Is Kutesa coming to the UN going to stop Museveni from being a dictator? How is it going to change the lives of Ugandans who are crying out and saying that we are speaking against this guy, or as a country, or as a continent? Where are people thinking?
Yes, because it does nothing for the people in general themselves.
The benefit is for himself and his boss, because they want to flout and change what they have done. They have committed crimes in Congo, and just recently in Sudan. They have done a lot of things within the region, Rwanda and everywhere, and they know that Museveni's intention of pushing Kutesa to the UN is to try and fix those things. It's not for the benefit of Africa. It's not for the benefit of Ugandans. They are trying to clean their behind.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Because I have to ask this question. Dorothy, you can help me with this, because as Americans, when we put people in offices, when we send people to be the part of the delegation for us to be the voice for the American people, we're looking for people that are going to strengthen us, that are going
credible people,
and people that are going to make us whole, and people who are going to have the best interests of the American people at heart. But can we say this about this individual? I guess not, because Zoe just said that. Dorothy, how do you feel about that comment?
Miss Brenda, there is something that is normal in the rest of the world. In Uganda, it is upside down. This is the man has brought our country to its knees. Corruption is normal. Okay? Stealing is normal. We have a man, everything to do with Uganda. Honorable Zoe and Miss Brenda, it is about Museveni. It is about Museveni is staying in power. Okay? As I said, we have credible people in Uganda who can represent us to shine. We would be dancing today to have somebody representing Uganda in the UN, and they are there.
Yes.
But the point is, it is about Museveni and Kutesa, as the Honorable said, to try to clean the mess they have done, try to save their lives using this chair that is intended to do otherwise, okay? To make sure they grab and hang on to power to protect what they have stolen. There's nothing other than that. For our fellow listeners, Honorable Zoe talked about the law. Miss Brenda, last weekend they did read the preamble of the UN. That's what I'm saying, that for us who are working here at Voice of Uganda Radio, and our listeners and those who love Uganda and our friends, they should understand that when you come up and you say, my name is so and so, and I stand, this is what I stand for, your actions should reflect what you say you stand for. So this is, for us, we have done our job. We have given the UN the information, and they know this. So what comes next is up to them and what they stand for, as they lay in their preamble what they do stand for. For those who are arguing, because, Ms. Brenda, let me go further a little bit here, because I think we need to address this, okay? For those who love Museveni dearly, they are stuck with one point. They said, Sam Kutesa said that the anti-gay law, almost 54% of African countries have this law. I want to make a record state. There is no country that has a law as harsh as that one of Uganda, the anti-gay law.
Yes.
Second, if I go into Uganda and I go to the market and I start stealing, does that mean that you should steal? This is a lawyer. Is that a moral argument? No. Now, for our listeners, this is not about one issue. Okay? It's not about one issue. Have you ever heard about the word human rights? Or the word corruption? Why don't you mention those two? Because I think on the UN they are big. That's one of the reason this organization was started. Okay? Is it about that you take children to be soldiers? They get there, they get injured, and then you ship them back. But the Americans pay these kids whenever they are Afghanistan, Iraq, or whatever. They pay them. Mr. Tessa, you own the bank through which they channel these monies. But the boys never get a penny. They sit home with injuries. This is a fact. The insurance company is suing here in America. We have over 60 children suing. How am I spoiling you? How am I spoiling you? You've been into corruption scandal after another. Only Museveni to save you. You've been censored in the parliament. How do you explain that? You can't pay your employees. How do you explain that? For God's sake, it is not about the anti-gay law only. But being that 54% of African countries do have this law doesn't make it right either. And for a professional lawyer, there is no way. My heart aches for Uganda, Northern Uganda, Congo, Rwanda, genocide. We are talking about over 10 million people dead, and those that we don't know.
Yes, and that is very true. We have a caller on, so we're going to go ahead and take this call real quick. Hey, introduce yourself and come on in, caller.
Hello, good morning, ladies. This is Chiwanuka Lawrence in Sereko calling in from New York.
Good morning.
I hope you are all doing well.
We are.
Well, under the circumstances, we have to keep the spirits up and do well. I'm happy, Madam Brenda, is saying we're doing well because this fight needs our spirits to be high. We need to remain focused. And we need to pick up reason and follow it up to the end. When you look at the situation that is taking place, one, those of us who have been calling in and have been writing and following the petition against Samuel Kutesa, we have been defined as radicals. And I think we should wear that garb, that tag of radicals with pride. Because there are moments when some of these tags that are seen as negative, at times they are important in defining who we are. I think in the letter from Birmingham jail, Martin Luther King talks about the word radicals, and he says, "You call me a radical? Yes, you can call me a radical, and I'll be proud to be, because you cannot afford to wait when your mother is being raped. You cannot afford to wait when your brothers are beaten every morning while they're going to work. You cannot afford to wait when you need your rights." So we are in the same situation, and I've been paraphrasing Martin Luther King. That's not a direct quote.
Right.
But we're in the same situation. They are saying about these radical voices on the internet, on the radio stations, that are calling against the appointment of Kutesa as a member of the president of the UN General Assembly. One has to understand that today is the 4th, and we are celebrating in Uganda the Uganda Matters. They were few, and they stood up against a king who was flouting their rights, and they said no. At that moment, when they were killed, all indicators were that they had lost the fight. But today, at the location where they were killed, we had about 1.5 million people show up to celebrate them and what they did, because they stood for what was right. So in a way, I would like to encourage my brothers and sisters to stand for the right and say no to Sam Kutesa. We might not be able to stop him, but the record will show that there were people who spoke for the truth. And you never know, there might be a chance. Someone might wake up and actually say, there is an issue here. We still have a week ahead of us, and this might be stopped. So in the remaining few days, we need to push hard and harder. And what I want to say here today is a little bit personal. And I want people to understand that we have no malice of our thought in regards to Kutesa. Personally, Kutesa at one stage in life, he was my personal lawyer. And he represented me pro bono. Wow. So I have no reason to maliciously attack him. But having done me that favor, it cannot blind me to his most recent behaviors since 1988. Because that's when he goes AWOL in regards to human rights. So this is our garden, and we have to pull the weeds out. This is our vine tree. We have to prune it so that when the world looks at Africa, they see a clean, promising garden. We cannot export impunity and expect dignity. If we bring Kutesa to the UN and he gets accepted, we are going to be looked at in a very bad image, because people are going to find out who he is. And you never know down the road with his behavior, how is he going to chair the meetings? Here we're talking about someone, because in 1999 he was censured by the Parliament of Uganda for corruption, and he lost his ministerial position. But because of family connections, being a relative of Museveni, he came back. Today, as we speak, the person who is coming to the UN, he has arrogantly already appointed 3 people, two personal assistants and an administrator for his office. The other 2 are relatives. One is his campaigning manager from his home constituency.
Wow.
And you are telling me that this is about Uganda as a nation? This is a personal family project for Kutesa and Museveni to do their lobby work, because they can't trust people outside beyond their core family to carry out this business. Okay. In 2007, this man was accused for misappropriating 150 million in public money. $150 million disappeared in a country where there are no hospital beds, in a country where women are giving birth in the kitchen, in a country where kids cannot go to school with materials to write down, They're supposed to go sit in a class and have a teacher read the textbook, the only textbook in the school, back to them, and they have to memorize it as a song. They have nowhere to write. They can't do homework because there are no materials, and somebody, one individual, walks away with 150 million, and this is the person we are bringing to chair the UN, where we are trying to see that every child has access to education, that every mother has access to safe medical attention. Is this the kind of image the UN wants to have? How can you get a fox and put it in a chicken roost to stay there?
Yes.
This is incredible. It's unbelievable. It's mind-boggling. Kutesa must be held responsible for what he has done.
Accountable.
Let his history judge him. Let it judge him fairly for the goodness of the entire population of the world, not only for Uganda. Because one of the problems we've had in the international community is for us to look at human rights comparatively. That Idi Amin killed 20 people, so Museveni, who has killed 18, is okay. That is madness at its highest. If, in the case of Iran, the person who was in a group of students who were young, who were 18, 17, and hijacked the US embassy in Tehran, can be denied a visa to come to the US. We have to have the same rules for the lives that have been lost in the Congo, for the lives that have been lost in Sudan, because Kutesa is at the center of the decision-making process in these countries. When we talk about Kutesa, one of the things that is interesting is people think that we are only talking to him in case of the AHA bill, the anti-homosexuality bill. No. You know, in a way, some of us, and I'm saying this with a cheek in the tongue, some of us are so straight that we're not worried about sitting with the gay people on the same couch. Some of these people, the Kutesas, I'm actually worried. I don't know why they are so scared sitting next to people who are not of the same sexual orientation as they are. But the primary issue is not actually only the Anti-Homosexuality Act. There are other horrible, unimaginable crimes that have taken place in Uganda. That Kutesa has been the primary legal advisor to the president. Because you have the Attorney General, you have all these other people, the Katrebes and what have you. They don't matter to Museveni the way Kutesa matters. Kutesa has the family ear and the political ear of Museveni. So he listens to him in all whatever he says. The violation of human rights in Uganda goes to political association, goes to freedom of speech, goes to gagging of journalists, goes to women's freedoms in regards to the Miniskirt Act, the so-called Miniskirt Act. It's such a humongous abuse of human rights of unimaginable proportions that we haven't seen in the modern era. It's the people of Kutesa's caliber in Museveni's government who have come up with the idea that let's have a legal dictatorship. Everything in Uganda is by law. But what kind of laws? These are the laws that are being crafted and designed by Sam Kutesa and his hierarchy. So we need to stand firm and fight. Because Museveni is there, and the Kutesa and the other people, the Ruhindis, they are telling us that they are fighting Western values. And Museveni was very clear that if the West bothers me in terms of human rights, I can work with China and Russia, who do not ask questions.
The North Korea.
So, now here we are looking at the other two members of the Security Council watching Kutesa come in. Here is somebody who has told us very clearly that for him human rights don't matter, that he can move to China and Russia. Therefore, this struggle calls for more than we are telling you in words. It's a deadly process. It's going to blight the UN. It's going to be a dirty, indelible mark on the UN. And there is need for people to move in and stop Sam Kutesa. Not because we don't like him. No. This is about principles. This is about the fundamental purpose for which the UN was established. The UN was put in place with a motto running around, never again, in response to the genocide that had taken place against the people of Jewish cultures. Why do we say yes today when there is genocide in the Congo?
Yes, exactly.
How?
Northern Uganda.
There is genocide in northern Uganda. The behaviors of gassing people that we saw in the ghettos in Germany, we saw them in Mukula. People were gathered, put in a train wagon, closed up, sand put underneath the train wagons, oil poured on and the fire lit, and the people were baked alive. And this was a guy in the cabinet. And we are allowing him to come and sit among people within the chairs of people who said never again. This is a shame to the entire global community. It's not a Ugandan problem. It's a problem of the image of the UN that needs to be sanitized by not allowing that of the kinds of Sam Kahama Kutesa landing in the seat of the president. If we do not do this, the UN, which is in place to secure the rights and the freedoms and the liberties and the democracy globally, will be pushed back many years in the eyes of people. And we will know that the UN is no longer grounded in the values that were so ably written in the Declaration of Human Rights. I believe if Eleanor Roosevelt was to wake up today and see that this is what's happening to the UN and they are bringing in this dirt, she would have a heart attack. She would die off again. So let's honor the people and what they believed in when they created the UN.
Yes.
By saying no to Sam Kutesa. I know geopolitics is very tricky. But as we play the geopolitics, one of our problems is that we deal with the end tail and not the head. We need to deal with the people, not with those who pretend to be leading the people. Because this is what happens. Things fall asunder. You sign an agreement with Hussein Mubarak. The following day, the people rise up. What do?
You're hostage.
You're a hostage. So all you need is to work with the people directly, because the people who know that Sam Kutesa stole a total of about maybe $700 million as of today, that has been recorded in parliamentary documents.
Wow.
How are they going to feel when he's at the UN? How do you think these people are going to imagine themselves? Here is someone who is exhibiting an exceedingly high level of intellectual dishonesty. He comes and tells you that in regards to the AHA bill, or the act, most countries in Africa are doing the same thing. Hello? None of them has life imprisonment except 2.
But even if,
okay,
do you have to be part of the bad group?
That's the issue. That's why I'm saying he's exhibiting a very high degree of intellectual dishonesty. If something is wrong, if it's done 100 times, that makes it right. I think Kutesa knows better than that. He's lied over and over just for the sole purpose of trying to get into the seat at the UN, and we know the purpose is for him to find inroads of how to block the possibility of having Museveni and a few of his close government officials taken to the ICC for trial for crimes against humanity. That is why this project is very important to them. That's why they've spent hundreds of money, thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to influence this process. I therefore want to call upon all Ugandans in wherever you are from to come on board and let's struggle and fight this process. And even go beyond and stop the breeding of our nation. Because Kutesa is just a symptom. There is a cause of the disease that we must cure of ourselves.
Yes.
I thank you for giving me this opportunity, and hopefully we will be celebrating a better day in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your call and all the things that you had to share. I know Zoe is just squirming in her seat there, so I'm going to go ahead and go to you, Zoe. Go ahead and comment there on what Lawrence had to share this morning.
That was really loaded, Miss Brenda. I want to thank Lawrence for eloquently actually talking about this situation. Bringing Sam Kutesa to the UN is a very, very desperate agenda for him and Museveni. They have a desperate agenda to put him there. That's why they bribed their way through through African Union and to be the only candidate to come to the UN. That's why they've been so desperate to convince everybody. Even when Ban Ki-moon went to Uganda to discuss within the region, actually to discuss issues of Sudan, he was so quick to take a photo because they were so desperate to show that he already supported him. When Senator Kerry went to discuss Sudan, Kutesa was there quickly to have that photograph taken. All those were campaign tools to try and discourage the people who were speaking against his candidature to come to the UN. And I mean, we want him to be accountable and responsible for what he has done, and not try to hide under this umbrella of saying it is good for Uganda. It is not good for Ugandans. It's not for good for Uganda. His agenda with the Museveni is, as Lawrence eloquently said it, they have issues they are scared about, particularly where they have committed crimes, and they are scared that it could end up in the International Criminal Court, and they know that to be true. And so they think that since he's a lawyer and a smart lawyer, he can work around things. If really it was about Uganda, Honorable Rugunda was here when Uganda was chairing the Security Council. He already has the experience. Why didn't they bring him back? Why did they have to be so desperate that it has to be Kutesa? If it was about Uganda, people have raised this issue where Kutesa's image is going to damage the name of Uganda rather than make it shine. Why didn't they return somebody who has already been there and has already served there? What was wrong with bringing Honorable Rugunda back to the UN? So for me, I think this is a very serious thing, and all of us are going to continue. The UN is supposed to protect the human rights of everybody, including the gays. And now Kutesa and Museveni think that because 54% of African countries have enacted a similar law against gays, so it is right for Kutesa to have been silent on this issue, and now even to come to the UN and sit there proudly and say that yes, they were disgusting people. What's going to happen if he has such a people in the audience? Is he going to get out? Is he going to chair that meeting? Is he not going to speak to people who are gay, who may be in the corridors of the UN? What is going to happen? He is going to be here for 1 year. He is going to meet those people because they exist and they live. And for them, for him and Museveni, they are disgusting. They are not supposed to exist. So how does he look at himself sitting or working in the UN around these people? How is he going to do it? How is he going to sit with people whom he thinks are disgusting and that they don't deserve to be where he is supposed to be? For in Uganda, he has enacted the law. And now, when he comes to the US and he's in New York, what's going to happen? So, as I asked earlier, does Kutesa coming to the UN, if now he believes that the UN protects the human rights of everybody, does that mean Uganda is going to repeal all those 3 laws which they enacted and several others which have been very, very repressive? Like the one which is shutting people up, particularly the opposition, the Public Order Management Act? Is it going to be repealed and rescinded? Does it mean the law, the AHA law, Anti-Homosexuality Act, is going to be repealed and rescinded? Or are they going to take away those harsh punitive clauses where even me, if I support a homosexual person, as a Ugandan, I'm supposed to be shipped back to Uganda and I should go to jail? I mean, like Lawrence says, people have to coexist. It is 21st century.
Yes. Yeah.
There are things that you have to understand, that there are people who are different and you have to live with them. And you cannot just say you are going to extinguish them. Just like for them, they are used to killing and making sure some people are extinct. And trust me, these people, they are not going to stop the things they have been doing. And so we are not going to stop. raising the dust after Museveni and Kutesha. Whether he likes it or not, he has to take responsibility for the things he has done. Those 54 countries, are they very corrupt? Do they go around in the region to cause the kind of conflict that him and his boss have been doing, where hundreds and thousands of women have been raped, exporting HIV/AIDS all over the region, where they are butchering people? Is that what those 54 countries, 54% countries in Africa which have enacted the anti-homosexuality law, do they do the same things that Kutesa has done with Museveni? They should not generalize things. They have to take accountability and responsibility for the wrongs they have done. His coming to the UN is not going to help or benefit Ugandans in any way. Women will still be delivering in the kitchens and in those dirty places. Pit latrines are still going to have maggots in health centers and schools. Many people are still going to live, 80% plus of Ugandans will still live under $2 a day.
Yeah. Not even $2, just $1.
It's $1 a day. It's not helping anybody. So let Kutesa have a conscience and step aside, because there are many good women and men in Uganda who could be chairing the General Assembly. It is not just about him. Why are they so desperate that it must only be him? That is my question.
Well, that's the question of a lot of people, actually. I'm going to, if you're just joining us, you're listening to the American Connection here on Voice Uganda Radio with Miss Brenda, the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, and Madam Dorothy. I usually take a break here at the top of the hour, but I'm not going to today. We only have 1 hour left in the show, and you'll get to listen to music the rest of the day. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with the second half of the American Connection here on Voice Uganda Radio. I want to go to Dorothy real quick here, because one of the things Lawrence just shared, and I want your feedback on this, Dorothy, is this: we must never forget the reason why the UN was formed. We must always remember why the UN was put in place, to stop the type of atrocities that had happened in Nazi Germany. When you hear him say that, and and just some of the things that Zoe just shared here herself, I mean, are we forgetting? Does this, because to me, as an American, knowing, and as other Americans who have emailed me, this looks like we have somehow forgotten the reason the UN was formed. Go ahead, Dorothy, and comment to that.
Thank you so much, Miss Brenda. Doesn't this really hurt when somebody, they stood up for what was right? UN was established. As Mr. Nsereko stated, that some people who worked so hard to make sure this was achieved, they can die again, you know? Because, Miss Brenda, I'm not being harsh here. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is an angel. Okay? We all make mistakes. And if it was one issue, maybe happened one time, they would have said that, oh, you people, you are too much. But we have set the record straight. I remember during our primary years and the secondary school, and we had these head prefects. They'll come, say something, and then, you know, I raise a point, an argument. And then somebody stood up one day and said, hey, I said, do what I said, don't do what I do. Really? Miss Brenda, this is all what I have to say. The UN is in a position where they can get all this information. When I say we have done well, we have really done well. When I see the comments of the Ugandan people, those that are edited that I saw before, I know what they wrote. I know. They have commented. The challenge is up to some Kutesa to have a moral conscience and say, you know what? I have tried. It is not too late. Let me make a choice here. If he loves Uganda enough, he needs to step aside. For the UN, that will be up to the organization. Is the two, can you mix the two, Miss Brenda? President Museveni, Honorable Kutesa being the top advisor of the president, a lawyer by profession. What Museveni and Kutesa they have done in Uganda, in Southern Sudan, you can imagine the issue of Southern Sudan is on the table, and they have interest in this. The issue of the Congo, where Uganda has been deemed guilty. President Museveni the other day, he said he's a rich man. What is he waiting to pay back? Congo, the amount of money that they owe for looting gold and timber and killing. So for the UN, I have cried from the beginning. It really hurts. For the UN to allow some Kutesa and Museveni to use the same chair. The same chair that was intended to defend the UN was born to defend human rights, as you all know, as you all heard, as you all read the preamble and the whole chapter of the UN. To use that same chair to go wash off their mud and bloody hands, that same chair, Miss Brenda, that is unthinkable.
Yeah.
So, as far as the UN is concerned, this is about credibility and what they stand for as an organization. The choice is theirs to make. I'm here to tell you today, I'm not intending to stop anytime soon. Being not guilty, I am guilty. I will stand up for the children, the pregnant women, the babies in Congo that were killed. Pregnant women cut into pieces. The fetuses cut, laid right there in heaps. The men and women who were raped and their husband. A woman is disgusted to look at the husband. The husband is like, I'm sorry, there be nothing I could do. The raped capital of the world, I will not tire. You know, President Museveni, when he starts to give examples, normally he uses the dead. Some people, they think the dead, they don't talk. Well, I'm talking for the dead, and I will not stop, because that is the right. For the children of Uganda, where we don't have a single functioning hospital in the country, Miss Brenda, and one man can afford to get away with over $700 billion.
Yes. That's a lot of money.
Get me right. I'm not stepping down, and I'm not intending to stop anytime soon. Call it hate, because these are a lot of issues. Yeah. Okay? It is human rights here. Grave issues. Let's talk about the elections in 2011. Mr. Kutesa owned one of the companies that were transporting election materials. Why did the two vans loaded with votes had to disappear? And you tell the world you didn't know the vans, you didn't know their plate numbers, you didn't know the drivers, you didn't know nothing. Because if you start digging, if you start finding information, this is endless. For that matter, if you think that we are too bad and we hate the man, Miss Brenda, I said, we here at Voice of Uganda Radio, we stand for the moral good. Okay? Yeah. We will fight for the right reasons. Among those reasons is justice, human rights, and we will do it the right way. I have no reason to hate the man, but I have a right and a responsibility to stand for those who have no voice. And I will do so. For the UN, we have done our job. and will continue to do so.
Yes.
Do you stand for what the UN stands for? Does the history of Mr. Kutesa and President Museveni mix with what the UN stands for? The question is theirs to answer.
Yes, and we very well said, Dorothy, because we understand and we know today that they are listening, and our voices are not going unheard on this day. We have an official group that we know that are listening and a part of this debate that we continue to have here on Voice Uganda Radio. Let me say this to you, Zoe. Talking about the $700 million that he stole, Sam Kutesa, just in corruption. President Museveni just did an article to the Ugandan people to save their money. That he's been saving his money since he was a youngster, and that's why he's a billionaire today. But can we get to the truth of the matter to say, President Museveni, nor can Sam Kutesa say that they are billionaires simply because of good traits and saving habits, when they are the leaders of the corruption of what's happened in this country, and they have taken money and food and medicine out of the hands of those that need it simply to continue to fill their own pocket. I have a hard time getting the American audience on board to believe such a tale when we know this man started. I mean, yes, billionaires have come up in life and they've made themselves millionaires and billionaires, but we know that hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars have disappeared in corruption at the hand of the sitting president, Museveni, and his brother-in-law, Sam Kutesa. So how can these individuals talk to us about the responsibility of saving money and becoming, and not spending our money? I think one of the things he said was he didn't smoke and he didn't drink. Well, it takes a lot more than that to make yourself a billionaire. Comment on that for me, because you were part of the corruption.
You really make me laugh, because when President Museveni says that he's been saving since he was very young, I think his history is known. He probably thinks people don't know who he is. Do you remember Museveni? No, listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you Google the photo of President Museveni when they were in the bush and how he looked when he was swearing in 1986?
Yes.
Can you just Google? Is that the photo of a millionaire who has been saving a lot of money?
Who was past 21 by then? If
by then he was already beyond 50. And if he or 40, if he was so rich, then he was definitely over 30, because he's now getting to 70. And
okay, let's give him some credit, because he tells us he's younger than he says he is. So let's say that he's 21 or 20. But still,
I think that is the one he says that where he's getting to 70 is the age which he's talking about or something. But if you look at that photo when he was swearing in, does it look like a millionaire? Does it look like someone who had saved a lot of money since he was young?
Yes.
I mean, whom is he deceiving? People know that he didn't even grow in his father's house. He grew up with Winnie Byanyim's father. So where was he getting all this? Did he inherit some of the riches, and inherit it from who? Because Winnie Byanyim's father, Mr. Byanyima Boniface, and his wife, may her soul rest in peace, those are the people who brought him up and took care of him. So did he inherit something that became part of his riches? Sometimes people forget so much, and they think they just lie. They become part of lying. He knows if he had so much money and he had saved so much money, why was he eating the cows and goats and chicken from the people of Luero to survive for his army? Why didn't he fund that war and feed his soldiers from his pocket, since he had so much money?
And break banks.
Why was he going around breaking banks to make money? So I think it is laughable. It is very sad. because you have a leader who becomes a pathological liar, who doesn't care about morals. He doesn't know what is right and wrong. Instead of just stopping, he has this verbal diarrhea where he speaks and he forgets that the things he says can be debated and put under scrutiny. He forgets.
I know, because him and his wife both wrote books, and if you read between the lines of what they wrote in their own biographies, you start to put this together.
Book.
Yes, and they don't make sense. I mean, she talks about their humble beginning.
They didn't look to be very rich people. They were not from very rich, and
I know. Why. We got a caller coming in. We're going to let them become a part of this conversation.
Grant the music for condolences.
I know. Come on in and introduce yourself into the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? We're having a little too much fun here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt that very interesting conversation. But, I'm not adding much except to say that I've recognized that you have put emphasis on justice, and I thought that I should say a few words about justice, especially in relation to what Museveni's and Kutesa's arguments to go to the UN General Assembly. Justice, we should remember, is the ultimate goal in organizing society. Democracy is a means. It is like a vehicle to take us to the ultimate destination, which is justice, really. We haven't talked much about justice. I think we will, but in jurisprudence, it is ultimately that's the end, the destiny. The society has to look for justice, otherwise it won't survive. Whether you look at Mandela, Martin Luther King, or Mahatma Gandhi, what they were doing, they were seeking justice. The democracy was just a means to take them to the destiny, the ultimate destiny of justice. So democracy and freedom actually, freedom is actually an essential element of democracy. But democracy itself takes you to, if it does not lead you to justice, you are not going to have a stable society. You are not going to have a good community. You will not enjoy your life ultimately. So this issue of the anti-homosexuality law, the number of, the citation of the number of African countries with the same law does not make it right. Not long ago, Africans were enslaved and colonized, deprived of their freedom. The question is whether, applying Kutesa's reasoning, it was okay to enslave or colonize the Africans simply because the majority of countries were doing it. It's not, you cannot reach that conclusion. Women did not have a vote to, in a majority of the so-called democratic countries. That did not justify their denial of the right to vote for women. It was a question of protecting human rights. As a matter of fact, a question of justice, an issue of justice that is equality of all people, men and women, gays and straight, white and black. That was the issue. It was an issue of justice. And so sometimes we lose sight of what we are really working for when we talk about democracy. Democracy is a means. So our cause right now, our cause is ultimately justice. As you pointed out earlier in this discussion, the pursuit of justice is guided by truth. And what is true today will remain true tomorrow. It will not change. The truth is not going to change. So we may lose this battle of preventing Kutesa from going to the UN to become president of the General Assembly. We may lose that battle, but the truth will remain the same. So ultimately, the truth will prevail because social change is inevitable. We may lose this battle, but in the end, the people who will write history, they will recognize the fact that we were right because we are on the side of justice and truth. So, and that brings me to this idea of human values. Sometimes this concept of human values is used for ideological reasons, for cultural reasons, to disguise people's prejudices and people's interests and so on and so on. So when I hear these Kutesas talk about the human values, what human values? When corruption is the order of the day, when truth does not prevail. So usually ideologies and cultures may distort these so-called human values, but truth is universal, as I said, and essential for justice to prevail. So human values incompatible with the justice, like a corruption or violation of human rights, are not really human values. Not long ago, the Asian dictators argued that Asian values were different from Western values. Same argument the Kutesas are trying to make. They did not. They did so. They advanced this argument for political reasons. They don't do it anymore. India and Japan, as you know, have predominantly Hindi and Buddhist cultures and values, if you want to use the word values. But they are also democratic in the Western sense of the word. Democracy in India and Japan is compatible with the democracy as practiced in the West. The values of the Indians and the Japanese are still there, but that has not prevailed democratization from taking place. So when these Kutesas try to distinguish themselves from the West by citing African values, they are misleading us. They are trying to tell us that we don't know what the truth is. We know what the truth is, and we know what justice requires, and you cannot mislead us. We have read enough history to understand this, and that's why I'm citing India and Japan. These are Asian countries, and they are democratic, although they still maintain their values, their traditional Buddhist and Hindi values. So the idea of human values viewed from an African perspective cannot mislead us anymore, except when we profess ignorance. That's the only time we could be misled. But the truth is, and justice, the truth and justice are universal. they cannot be distorted by self-interest rooted in politics. The politics now, prevailing. In these arguments advanced by Kutesa and Museveni. So, in the end, the truth and justice cannot be distorted. Even history cannot change them. They will. What I can only promise Kutesa and Museveni one thing, that we are going to have a Truth and Justice Commission.
Yes.
And that Truth and Justice Commission is going to look into their wealth. You've been talking about whether or not Museveni was a millionaire when he sworn in. He wasn't, of course. These are people.
So you've read his book also.
Yeah, and they came. We remember very well the pictures are still with us. We remember the pictures of these people from the bush with the pants with the holes in them. We have those pictures. So to be a millionaire today, of course, Kutesa never went to the bush. He was all the time in Kampala when the others were in the bush. But those who went into the bush, we know when they came out they were paupers, worse than paupers. And to say that today they are justified to be millionaires through corruption is a disgrace, and it cannot stand the light of truth and justice. So I will stop there and let you continue with the beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much, Professor, for coming in, and you always add to the program, and it's always a delight to have your call come on board, so thank you so much. Zoe, I want to go to you with something that the professor said there, and then just you can lead on into this, because when he talks about democracy, about these Asian countries, that even though they still stand on their ground roots of, who they are, what they stand for as far as religion or whatever, the moral principles. When you think about that, you think about Sam Kutesa going into the UN, looking back at Uganda. Now, this is a man who understands and knows the way true democracy works. He's here in the United States. He's been here. He understands and knows. How can he look at what is happening here, and even in other countries that he's visited, and look back at Uganda and say that they're living in true democracy, or that they're developing themselves? I mean, how can he, isn't that odd to, I don't know how I could sit and have a straight face to say that my country is a true democracy when I know how true democracy works.
First name is Brenda. This is a situation of entitlement. These people feel so very entitled that they think that they can pull off anything, and so for them, they don't care. It's all about them. And so it's not about democracy. It's not that Honorable Kutesa doesn't know. He knows. He's a lawyer. He's read all these things. He understands what human rights is supposed to be, but he's totally blinded by the greed and his loyalty to Museveni in protecting themselves, and so and the billions that they have acquired. Because if we go back, if Museveni is talking about him having been rich, like Professor said, we have all these photos, we have history, we know. And if he's talking about coming into government and taking the currency and cutting the 3 zeros, so that, monies which were in the National Social Security Fund, all the savings people had, they took away the zeros. If it was 1 billion, they took away the, what that, if it was 1 million, they took away the 3 zeros, it remained 1,000. They robbed people. That is where they started. And so since they got away with that, they just continued with their robbery. And since they robbed banks, They broke into banks and robbed during their time they were in the bush. It has become a trait. It has become part of them.
They just do it in suit and ties now. They just do it in suit and ties now instead of...
Yeah, they will sit with a straight face because these are people with personality disorders who don't care, who don't have a super ego, which is going to tell them this is wrong, and they try to listen to it and try to step back and say, am I doing the right thing? As far as they are concerned, what they are entitled, and nobody can stop them. And
so
that is why,
this would be a good way of us taking the money back that belongs to the Ugandan people. When we go in with the Truth Commission, we'll just take away some of their zeros and give it all back to Ugandan people.
Perfect. Exactly. I mean, they think they're the smart ones.
Yeah.
and like we said, we understand, we know these histories. And these people don't know that by doing what they're doing now, they're adding salt and pepper into people's wounds. They are giving people the urge to investigate further. And by the time the Truth and Justice Commission comes in, there'll be tons of information from Professor.
Exactly. Exactly. Dorothy, come on in. What did you want to share from what the professor just shared with us?
Oh, man. This is... let us talk about the moral decay and justice. Because this is, because, the professor said we never forget about history. We cannot afford it to, because if we forget Martin Luther King, Angela, if we forget the Malcolm X's, Harriet, Nelson Mandela, we will be in very big trouble. So the fight here is about the truth and the justice. And I loved that Professor did bring out this moral issue. For God's sake, this moral issue is such a big thing, because whatever study you take, you get satisfied. There are some kind of ethics that goes with it, okay? Doctors do, nurses do, so does lawyers and the rest of them. There is ethics in there for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we say. But Mr. Kutesa's arguments, oh my God. The state, Senator Kerry supports me. There is no basis today, whatever they are saying. I'm not bothered by it, okay? 54% of African nations, they have such a law, right? That's why it's like when Museveni go rob the bank, you go rob the bank. There is so much arrogance here that we just need to know what is democracy, what is the truth, what is the moral values, okay, not the moral values of the Kutesas, but for the Ugandan people, the way they understand it and how it is supposed to be, okay? Miss Brenda, there is nothing, you can deny something, but Mr. Kutesa is a professional lawyer.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? He cannot say that he doesn't understand these things, no, he cannot say that he does not know.
Well, tell me this, does he have a book out that I can read so that I can better understand him too?
I don't think they have enough. Not yet. Not yet. I would like to read one. Yeah, I would like to find one sometime in the future, how he made that too much money. Yes. Even President Museveni need to clarify. I know how he said he sells the milk to all over Uganda. My dear, over $12 billion. I would like to know what kind of milk that is. By the way, we have to remember.
Ugandans buy that milk. Which Ugandans are buying milk in billions.
Yeah, and you remember that when he did drink the condolences, I wonder why they had to send milk if there was a lot of money there, So, I mean, I don't want to go into things, but the first lady, how they were, was it Sweden or whatever, some place where they couldn't
But according to his book, the first lady is very lucky because he didn't spend his money on booze, wine, and women. So
no! Don't talk about women. The guy
don't go there because these chicks. These chicks that he gives the boys. This is one of these 40 kids. The chicks he brings in all the offices. Daddy sent me for this. Give me this much, man.
What about over?
You know what?
How can you say?
What is that all about? I mean, I'm telling you that statement holds no water to me because, as the professor said, we know. If you read, you know. So we know the truth.
Yeah, but if he has a problem with zeros, does he have 40 children or does he have 4? I mean, because he could just drop a zero there, you know. I mean, if that's the way he's running the country, if that's the way he's taking from the Ugandan people, who's not to say? Is it 40 or 4? I mean,
Miss Brenda,
zeros have no value to him.
Yeah, you can have a man who smokes and drinks, but if he doesn't steal and has one wife and his own kids and he spends on his family, he's better off than a man who does not smoke, who does not drink, has over 40 women and over 40 children. I mean, how can you say this is a very corrupted person? How can one person have over 40 children and be a leader of a country?
Well,
just look at, does he have morals? Jeez.
So the fight is understandable. Kutesa will go to the UN, try to protect the inheritance of the children, which is if for the Ugandan children, they will stay to die without basic needs, you know. But coming back to that point, that's why we are here. We'll stand up.
And you know, we're talking about a new Uganda. We're not talking about Uganda the way it exists now, because one of the things, ladies, we understand and we know, Uganda can never continue forward at the rate it is right now. You can never give that seat the power that it has today in a new Uganda. You've got to give Uganda back to the people and allow the people to vote for what they want and live the way they want to. For you to share, Dorothy, that this man, 2 of his vans go missing with all the votes in it, I would know if 2 of my vans went missing. So there's a lot of things that don't make sense. And the thing is these are the things that we have to give back to the Ugandan people. I remember, I think you shared it, Zoe, when Brenda Kenya was voted in, how people stood by to watch those votes be counted. They would not leave. They not only voted, but they camped out there for the rest of the day. If that's the message that we have to send to this government in order to get things to run the way that they need to, then that's what we do. But it won't be for counting votes for the president in 2016 because, I mean, gee whiz. I mean, really, let's just drop a couple of zeros and he loses. I mean, you know, if zero has no values.
Yeah, that is true. We laugh about it, but that is the hope. That's the hope part, because Museveni and the Kutesas are going to be the past for Uganda.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Kenyans and the youth, and people who stand for justice with us, people who stand for the truth, people who stand for moral rights of right and understanding wrong and knowing that difference. That is our future of new Uganda, where everybody is going to be equal, Miss Brenda.
I know, because
where Ugandans will have equal access to all the resources, because Uganda has so much resources. It's a country which is blessed with a lot of resources. The resources we have in this country, if we have good leadership, which we are going to have in the new Uganda, it can cater for everybody's needs, and it can even develop. It can even go beyond our borders to help develop other countries. We can be a donor country because we have enough.
You have enough. Exactly. It's interesting to me, and either one of you can comment on this, because when you just talked about the youth here, Zoe, the youth understands that there's something wrong with their country. The youth understands that there's something wrong with infrastructure, job employment, why companies are not coming in, why universities are not being built and made better, why are they not bringing in the best professors and lecturers to teach these children. I mean, the youth are on board and they understand and know something's wrong because of what's happening in social media and how they project and see their lives to be. The older generation, which we'll call their elders, because that could mean anyone from 25 or 28 onward, the elder generation understands and knows something's wrong because of the past, because of the dictatorship time and time again, because of the way the country has fallen into ruins, and because of the way that the Ugandan people are being treated. Because the elders understand Uganda from the time when the Obates and the Idi Amins, the hospitals still work, the universities still function, the roads were, drivable and weren't as bad as they were. Corruption did not drive up the cost of living that people are paying almost $100 million for a house in Uganda. I mean, come on. You're never going to establish a middle class society because you're becoming one of the countries where either you're very, very rich or you're very, very poor. And in the new Uganda, I see government coming in using some of the monies that from the wealth that it brings in to build low affordable homes. So every person in Uganda, just like we did here in the United States of America, can own a house. And if they have a good, reliable job where they can show where they're making an income, afford these people homes. Let investors come in and invest money in to build these homes because they'll make money off of the interest that the people pay, on their mortgage payments. I mean, we've got to make everyone in Uganda feel like they own a part of Uganda, like Uganda belongs to them. And like you said earlier, Zoe, what is Sam Contessa doing in the UN that's going to make a difference for the Ugandan people back home? Comment on that for me, if you would, ladies. Either one of you.
For me, you have summarized it so beautifully, Miss Brenda. The youth understand this, and we are blessed in this generation because of the social media, because of the internet. Even when they suppress the youth still can get information and communicate with each other. For the older people, they experience, like me, they experience the unrest, and they will remember that as part of our history. But we don't have to be prisoners and hostage to that past and history. We have to free ourselves. We do not forget, but we have to move on, for heaven's sake, and build a country, as you just said, which is good for everybody, because Uganda is big enough for all of us. There's no reason why people should not all be in that country and developing it, and why it should only be raped financially by some very few people who are doing what they are doing. So I believe that the universities will be accessible to the youth. It's not going to be a selected few who have to be funded under a presidential, a presidential fund. You take the monies for the people's tax, from the people's tax, and you put it in your pocket, and you pretend you are paying school fees, and there's no accountability of taking this 1 billion and how much you have spent on which students. There's nothing. Nobody has had a record published where Museveni has said over the years, this is the total amount of money I took out of the government coffers, spent on young people from these regions. These are the names, and the young people stand out and say, yes, here we are. How do we even know if these children are really existing, if they are not part of, because Uganda has been so bedeviled with the ghosts, and that is the past, what Museveni's government is known for. Ghosts in public service, ghosts in police, ghosts in schools. You have buildings, classrooms which are ghosts. You know, the zeros go with the ghosts. We never had ghosts before. And sometimes when I think of it, I'm like, oh, Dorothy just spoke about the dead not talking. Are these people who were murdered and whose bones were left outside, are those skeletons coming out as ghosts to remind us by what these people are doing that they are ghosts? They call them ghosts. Things which don't exist. Money being spent on ghost teachers, ghost policemen, ghost civil servants, ghost schools, ghost health centers. Are the dead speaking out?
Yes.
I think it's very, very critical for us to know that in the new Uganda, all this is going to be in the past. We cannot allow another dictatorship to come up and they think that they are going to be continual with oppressing or suppressing some regions and just, enriching themselves and stashing money away. Money must be spent in Uganda to rebuild Uganda and to build the Ugandan people and do the social and economic development of the country. And we can be a donor country. We can, because we have the natural resources. We have minerals, we have gas, we have things that we can use to help other countries develop. And so in the new Uganda, I have a lot of hope. Because if you look at people like, we have in the diaspora, all this manpower, all this intellect, all these professors. I mean, we have the cream of the cream. We have all the people in Uganda who may be keeping quiet because they are silenced, but they know that they are looking so much forward to the opportunity to have freedom, to have justice, and to use that democratically to achieve the goal of socioeconomic development for all. I just can't wait for that. And I know it is coming soon. Psalm 7, count your blessings.
Yeah. Take away a few zeros. Go ahead, Dorothy, and comment on that, because we're talking about move forward for the Ugandan people, a new Uganda. What do you see in that?
Miss Brenda, one thing that I keep counting on, as whenever we had stated, we have the cream of the cream, the top one. I'm telling you, when Museveni came to power, a lot of intellectuals in different departments, the doctors, and they were, just because of that they knew too much, they were smart. Many of them were killed, others were in prison. Those who had enough luck, they had to run outside. Ugandan children, all ethnic groups, Mama Brenda, they are too smart. I'm so proud. Man, they are really, when it gets to books, you led the show. How the American government looked at the Ugandans in diaspora, how hard they worked. You can go. How many hours do they put in? Okay? So, for some Kutesa and Seven and the others, they have taken a lot from the Ugandan people. But what comes to me the most is the tying of the Ugandan people's hands, denying them chances to work. Okay? The coffee marketing boards, the unions, these things were taken away intentionally because, as I have already said again and again, this was a plan. It was a big project to make sure that to get the people, to make them poor. Because in their minds, when people are very poor, they are managed. As I said, no man is going to think about Museveni when they don't have their kids, they don't have a cup of milk, or they don't know what they're going to have for lunch. For this reason, people's land is being taken away. The coffee was taken away. A lot of good plants for good reasons. Then they introduced vanilla. Ugandans got big on this project. Museveni had to block the borders so that people don't sell vanilla to other countries. They are making too much money. This I know. The fire, the burning of people's business, it is intentional. What I'm saying, the Ugandan people work so hard, and they are known for that. Those rich men who supported him to war killed them for reasons. And after killing, he confiscated their properties. He did. So, New Uganda, come to the New Uganda, Miss Brenda, we are capable, more than capable. People outside, they're educated. People back home, their hands are just tied. Yes. So that they don't make things, they can't make an income for their own. So that they just have to beg for position. They just have to go to the state house, to kneel, to be given a little money for dinner. But come New Uganda, Miss Brenda, the children of Uganda, given all the chance on the planet, Uganda will prevail in no time. Believe it or not, that is going to happen. So, we are waiting for that. That is a big project. The man stands up and says, every child in Uganda, the sky is the limit. Are you kidding me? You cannot let them come abroad and take away their scholarships. Why is that? That's the same thing the education was denied to the slaves. My dear, the New Uganda, please, people don't lose hope. Yes. Have determination. Yes, exactly. It will not take time to build Uganda. No way. It will not. And we will get there. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we cannot get there when these people are clinging on. It is time due for them to go, and we have to show them the way. Mm-hmm. So please don't sit back to let everybody else do. We are all responsible, and we are going to do it. As the professor said, it doesn't matter what Museveni does or does not do now. What matters is for us, the rest of the Ugandan, over 35 million. You can give him 71 million or two if you like, but we are the majority. We have the power. We have a responsibility, and defending your country to take it back, it is a right, God-given. Having an ambition to be president or work in any sector to serve your country and bring it forward is a responsibility, and you have a right to do so. So please, get up.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Miss Brenda.
Thank you, Dorothy. I tell you this, one of the reasons African Americans were able to advance and move forward in the United States is because we did not allow our history to hold us hostage. The Ugandan people are still allowing parts of their history to hold them hostage. We have to start building upon each other to look at the new Uganda, the way we want to see Uganda, the way we envision it being. Those are the hopes that we want to put in the hearts of Ugandans in the diaspora, as well as Ugandans at home or wherever they may be. Because we have the power to build and bring about a new Uganda for all Ugandans to live in and to thrive in. This this sitting president talked about bringing Uganda into a middle-class status. There is no sign of that ever happening under his regime. There is no sign of that happening any time before 2016 or thereafter. There is just nowhere to be found. The reason the economy in Uganda flourishes and does so well today is because of the Ugandans that live in the diaspora. It is the monies in which they sweat and make to send back into that country that gives that country a bottom line and allows it to have an economy that grows. The problem with that is people who don't have a family out in the diaspora, they are becoming poorer and poorer and poorer because the standard of living is getting higher and higher because of all of the money that's flooded into the country. The new Uganda has a capability of becoming a middle-class community within 10 years after the new Uganda takes place. That's how quickly people can be put in homes, people can be put in jobs, people can show their standings that whatever little monies they make, there's a mortgage that could fit them, that could help them to own a piece of Uganda. It's the same thing that happened in the United States of America some years back when they felt like every America should be able to own a piece of the American pie. So they made housing affordable. Yes, they made loans and they modified things for the not so wealthy to become a part of a middle-class growing community. And this is what can happen in Uganda. There is nothing to say that even the poorest farmer living in Uganda right now cannot have a nice home. And these are the things that we envision and see, and these are the things that we want you to see. Well, let me tell you, they may be rallying against their parties and excited about what's happening in the UN and excited about what's happening with Museveni and his family moving forward. But we're going to have some announcements to make of our own here after a while.
Very soon.
And our announcements are going to be just as powerful as their announcements are, because we are all about moving the Ugandan people forward. We are not about moving the country forward. We're about moving the people forward, because we believe if we move the Ugandan people forward, the country will do nothing but develop because of that. Because we give the people pride back in their country. We give them pride in one another. Rule and divide is over. It is over. And we don't need to think about our lives in that way anymore. If you cannot trust but one person, trust that one person. Build upon that as you continue to trust and grow outside of the circle and where you can trust now. As we start to make announcements and things start to grow forward for us, get in where you trust and hang on. Because you will. If you can trust one person, you need to trust the people that person trusts. And then it grows to where we have a community where there is no more rule and divide. But we start to trust one another, and we start to build Uganda on the backs of one another, one day at a time, one moment at a time, and one step at a time. Just like the professor said, through trust. Trust and truth. Justice and truth will unite us, will make us stronger, will make us stand firmly together, and will help us to move forward to a brighter and a new and a better Uganda. Ladies, we only have a couple of more minutes. If you guys want to just round up and say goodbye to the audience, I'll give you guys the last few minutes here. But I want to just say thank you so much to all of our listeners for being a part of Voice Uganda Radio today and the American Connection. Go ahead, ladies, and with your closing comments there. Zoe, I'll let you go first, and then Dorothy can close it out. You only have a couple of minutes, though.
Yeah, I just want to say that you really summarized it well. I think in the new Uganda, we are going to have freedom, and true freedom, and real freedom. And we are going to experience a democracy where each and every one of us will have a share in developing Uganda. And I know that you put it at the most in 10 years. We can develop Uganda faster than that, especially when we have regional plans and the resources are put within the regions, and people know what their goals are and what the steps they have to take. Nothing is going to stop us. And with all this cream, the knowledge, the friends we have built out here, going back to join our brothers and sisters who are very knowledgeable in Uganda and working as a team, the sky is the limit. I just don't want the youth to lose hope. And I think the people of Uganda, as Brenda said, we are going to make some announcements, and very soon. And some of those announcements are going to put us in the right direction. Unity, unity, unity. We can work together to take our country back, and we should speak out. Kutesa does not deserve to be our representative in the UN. If he can't step down by himself, we are on record. If the UN turns the other way, we are on record. And I just want to end by thanking all of you again this afternoon for being, and morning for being a part of this show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zoe. And Dorothy, you just have a couple of minutes here. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Miss Brenda. The struggle depends on what we do. Don't forget, we are the majority. Don't forget, Uganda belongs to us. Don't forget, it is our responsibility. How much, how fast does the new Uganda come, grow, depends on what we do. Remember the power we have. We, the people of Uganda, it is our responsibility to fight for justice, for peace, and what belongs to us. Remember, sitting back and wait, it will not do you any good. So this is our responsibility, and we will make it. Honorable Zoe, you have summarized it well. The youth, you are on the right track. Don't be lied, they're going to be crushed. You stand up for justice. The new Uganda depends on you, what you make of it. Stop running and stand up.
Yes.
So that we fight for Uganda. It does not matter. We have done our job as far as Mr. Sam Kutesa is concerned. This is not hate. Our arguments are based on the truth. So stand up for the new Uganda. It is coming soon, and we are going to make it. Thank you so much, Miss Brenda.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you for a wonderful show. Thanks to all of our listeners for being a part of Voice of Uganda Radio and the American Connection today. I hope that you leave us lifted and your spirits bright, and I hope that we have ignited truth in you that will continue to move you forward, not just in the areas in which you live, but in Uganda also. Trust me, we will walk back into Uganda hand in hand, and we will take it back someday for the Ugandan people in peace and in love in every way. Thank you so much for being a part of Voice Uganda Radio. You have been listening to the American Connection with Miss Brenda, the Honorable Zoe Bakoko, and Madam Dorothy. We'll talk to you on Sunday morning for Freedom at Hand.